Hey YouTube, JoyBoy here. So, chapter 896 of One Piece is out. If you haven't checked out that chapter yet, I suggest that you do so because I will be spoiling you. But now that you have, let's begin. Guys, my opinion of this chapter might be a bit controversial and might irritate several people out there, but rather than be dishonest, I would just prefer to be honest because I think that's the way that you should go about it. By far, for me, the thing that I enjoyed the most from this chapter, I don't think was the part of the chapter that Oda intended for us to enjoy the most. The Pudding and Sanji stuff in this chapter was pure gold. There's been a lot of people out there that have hated on Pudding's character. They find her annoying every scene that she is in. You know, they make some sort of disparaging remark. But I have loved Pudding for the past 30 chapters, unlike many people. Their relationship has been steadily growing, and their dynamic has been growing on me. I believe that I am one of the few YouTubers who can safely say, who can honestly say, that they have been looking forward to more Pudding the last several chapters. The tsundere, or whatever you want to call her, I love it. How she wants to say certain things, but she can't. I think this comes along with the territory of being a theorist, but as I'm reading this, I come up with my own headcanon for reasons of understanding, what's going through Pudding's mind. I'm part of the Big Mom Pirates, these are my enemies, but damn, Sanji is fucking amazing. He's everything that I have ever wanted, and not only that, but he thinks that I'm beautiful, regardless of my deformity. He's strong, he loves food, and he's kind, even after everything that I and my family have put him through. Even now, he still thanks me. We both know that I don't deserve that. Honestly, I really don't feel like I deserve him. And it wouldn't even matter anyway because I can never have him. I'm so bought into the Pudding and Sanji story, it's just crazy. And to see Pudding again here go through the motions of sort of thinking what it is that she really wants to say but not saying it, and see the pain on her face. Oda choosing to have Pudding make essentially the same face that Sanji made all those chapters ago when Pudding broke his heart. It's just perfect. Powerful, moving stuff. And then it seems like at the very end, after it seems to nearly break her, she finally is able to overcome it. Sanji, I have one last request. As she takes the cigarette out of his mouth. We don't actually get to see what happens. I do think that we will eventually learn this, but I think the first impression that most people are going to have is that she went in for a kiss. Thinking about it from an outsider's perspective, you might think that Pudding is being a bit selfish here. But I think that most last requests would be. Aside from the kiss, if you ask me what I hope that potentially Pudding told Sanji, I hope that Pudding told Sanji that he is as amazing as he actually is. And at this point, I really think Pudding could honestly tell Sanji, I hope that one day you achieve everything in life you've ever wanted, because you deserve that. And maybe one day we might be able to meet again. And maybe when that day comes, we can start off on a different foot. Because forced marriages aside, I really do think that I would like to know you better someday. Like I said guys, this was my absolute favorite moment from this chapter, and not every bit of it is connected to what we were actually given, but part of it revolves around how I interpret what we weren't. And I really do believe that that is the beauty of imagination. But this is where I'm probably going to start triggering people, which is obviously, as you probably have gotten up until this point in time, if my favorite moment from this chapter was Sanji and Pudding, then obviously I liked it more than the scene with Katakuri and Luffy at the end of the chapter. And in truth guys, I liked it significantly more. And so I think that I do this a lot, but I think that it's worth saying guys that I don't know necessarily what makes for a good story all the time. What I can express better than anything else is how I feel about a chapter or a scene, and how that scene or chapter makes me feel. And I don't think that you can say this without bringing up the idea of expectation. And so guys, I am one of the few people that throughout Whole Cake Island, I haven't really criticized it much. I've enjoyed immensely pretty much all of Whole Cake Island. I have very little negative to say. Or I should say that what negative that I do perceive doesn't really impact my enjoyment of the story much at all. So let's use an example, right? In chapter 882, right, Jinbei ends up surfing Big Mom's wave. I absolutely loved that chapter. Is that chapter in a vacuum better than what we got with Luffy and Katakuri in this chapter? No. Because that moment of the story doesn't compare to the moment that we just got. There's a clear difference in what Oda is hoping to achieve with these two chapters. The finale of Luffy versus Katakuri, and Katakuri's last words to Luffy and Luffy's last actions before leaving him on his back was intended to be huge. This was supposed to be one of those moments in One Piece, and one of those moments within Whole Cake Island that really just rips at your chest. But it really just didn't feel that powerful to me. But if I'm honest, I can't really point my finger as to why. There doesn't really seem to be a lot wrong with the orchestration. I'm fine with the fight itself. We didn't get to see the final blows. That doesn't matter to me. I also don't have a problem with what Katakuri said as far as like it makes sense to me. I thought Luffy's show of respect at the end where he tosses the hat on top of Katakuri's mouth was pretty great. But taking the scene in its entirety, it just didn't give me those feels. And there's really nothing else that I can say other than it just kind of sucks. The only real thing that I can come up with is that I might have enjoyed this more if it didn't feel so hurried. Because essentially we were slow played for a lot of the Katakuri Luffy fight leading up until this moment. And I don't have a problem with that as long as the payoff is there. But then you get one full chapter of actual fight, which was amazing, and then you lead into this chapter and you have a couple pages and it's over. I think I would have actually liked more conversation between Katakuri and Luffy, because it all really just felt incredibly fast. But anyway, I think that I probably triggered enough people enough for right now. I don't think that it was bad. I don't want you to get the impression that I think that it was bad. This is really another instance where potentially expectation has struck again. You create expectations and you allow yourself to be open for disappointment. This scene didn't live up to my expectations, and for me didn't achieve what it was supposed to. But that aside, I think that this chapter creates a lot of discussion material. And again here, I want to be kind of controversial. I think that it should be plainly obvious to everyone reading the story right now what Oda is setting up. Oda is setting up the end to Whole Cake Island. It's clear as day. Final conversations with Pudding, Peckham's is here, final conversation with Katakuri. Both the Pudding and Katakuri stuff seems pretty final, like, you know, this is kind of the last time that we're really going to talk. This all leading into the Strats planning to escape right now. And the only thing that they really need before they can be allowed to escape is Luffy, and Luffy is on his way. Oda right now is creating the expectation that Whole Cake Island is about to end. And because it is so plainly obvious, you know that everyone is going to be speculating it. Whole Cake Island is essentially going to be ending soon after Chapter 900. Chapter 900 is the chapter in which they leave Whole Cake Island. I'm certain that's what these speculations are going to be. But being the brain-dead contrarian that I am, I don't agree. And I don't believe that. Because as of right now, I don't think that we can trust what Oda is setting up, and we have reason not to. Everyone will say, look, JB, it's obvious. Look, they're leaving. Katakuri and Luffy had their final conversations. Pudding and Sanji, final conversations. What don't you understand about this? And I will point to chapter 872 and 873, in which Oda did the exact same thing, but yet Whole Cake Island still went on. After the castle fell, Oda created the expectation that Whole Cake Island was ending, and the vast majority of fans believe that to be the case. I remember because I took a poll on Twitter. And it's so comparable to what we are getting right now. See, look, JB, Capone and Luffy had their final conversations. They have nothing left in their path. They just gotta leave. It's over. Accept it. The only people that were right were those who suspected that there was still more that needed to be covered in this arc. But I'll admit that the argument at that time was far stronger than the argument is at this time, because a lot of things since that point in time have been resolved. Things like Pudding and Sanji. Of course, we needed to have a definitive Pudding and Sanji moment before the end of this arc, and you could argue that we got that. along with many other things. So essentially for me, it's the same situation as we were in after the cake fell, after the castle fell, except for it's a lot harder to be certain. And in fact, unlike in that situation, I'm willing to accept the possibility. I do believe that there is a possibility that the arc is over, or about to be over, because enough has been taken care of for it to be possible, as compared to before. But that doesn't mean that I believe that it's going to end. I still believe that you need to resolve Big Mom's and Pudding's and Katakuri's story within Whole Cake Island. Oda needs to come full circle with Big Mom's rages, and Pudding and Katakuri need to be happy with being in Whole Cake Island. Luffy needs to find a way to guarantee Peckham's safety. And I also think that Oda will set up a situation, and seems to be leading in that direction, that the Strauss will also need to find a way to guarantee Pudding's safety. I think that my impression of what is going on, especially between the conversation of Katakuri and Luffy, is that the Big Mom Pirates aren't going to be an enemy in the future. It would just seem ridiculous. You have a Yonko's first in command, their strongest child, their strongest subordinate, essentially tell Luffy, you know, I kind of believe in you. I think that one day you will defeat Big Mom. So if Luffy is ever in a situation in which he would defeat Big Mom again, the dynamic is kind of ruined. You lose a lot of the of that story, because the crew that they're fighting believes in Luffy. It changes the dynamic of everything. Basically where I stand is that I do expect and I do believe that all of the threads that are currently hanging will resolve themselves by the end of Whole Cake Island. That is my opinion. Whatever it is that I might say that you will say, okay, that will be in another arc. No, what I believe is that it will be handled in this arc. And if I convey anything, and if I argue for anything, it's simply just that you should consider the possibility that this isn't the end. Because Oda has been doing this thing throughout Whole Cake Island. And so then understanding that Oda has tried to sell the end of Whole Cake Island before, and that makes this end be suspect, then if you are looking for a reason which might keep the Strats in Whole Cake Island, I've discussed this in a video recently. This could be such as a Buster Call being called on Whole Cake Island, stopping their escape. It could relate to Pudding. If Pudding outs herself, if the Big Mom Pirates realize that Pudding is a traitor, that will 100% force Sanji and the Strats to stay behind in order to resolve her circumstances. Or the same even applies to Peckham. Or it could be that Big Mom just makes a sudden appearance, preventing their escape. Or as I was reminded in the comments section to my last video, it's possible that the sea freezing over becomes extremely relevant now that it is 1 o'clock in the morning, and the Strats literally can't leave. There's lots of ways in which it's possible. But as of right now, there's not a whole lot that is concrete. All that I really have is gut feelings about what needs to be taken care of. And obviously we will find out. And in the meantime, I will continue to say what is on my mind honestly, regardless of whatever repercussions comes from that. Because it has served me well throughout Whole Cake Island. But anyway, there's a few odd ends that I want to discuss about this chapter. The first of which is that the Big Mom Pirates will basically refuse to believe that Luffy was able to defeat Katakuri. And without actually seeing Katakuri, there's no way to confirm that Luffy was actually able to defeat him. So even if Luffy emerges from the mirror world into the procession of Big Mom Pirates, that doesn't really mean anything. They'll just assume that Luffy ran away, which I thought was, it's really interesting. This is another thing that I think that needs to be taken care of. The Big Mom Pirates need to 100% realize, again, in this arc, that Luffy was able to defeat Katakuri. And so I would say at this moment, the only easy way in order for them to get this information and believe it is if it comes from Brûlé. This might be something that we get in the next couple chapters. Brûlé crying her eyes out, exclaiming that Luffy was able to defeat Katakuri. This could really be setting up a nice moment. But at the same time, even though Brûlé sees Katakuri down and out, she still thinks, what kind of trickery did you use in order to win? Basically, just the same as the rest of the Big Mom Pirates, she refuses to believe that Katakuri could lose. So if nobody believes that Luffy legit beat Katakuri, then the only real person who could convince them is Katakuri himself. And that sounds really interesting to me. Another thing that Oda seems to have emphasized in this chapter is the underworld brokers, Big News Morgans and Stussy. Basically, if the Strats are able to escape, if Luffy's able to defeat Katakuri, this would become, quote, big news. I could really spend a lot of time talking about this, but I 100% buy it as being big news. You have Straw Hat Luffy end up besting a Yonko. That takes away from that Yonko's credibility. Other people then would think, okay, this is possibly the Big Mom Pirates are losing it. Maybe it's our time. If these Straw Hats are able to defeat Big Mom and the Big Mom Pirates without actually defeating them, it oh so strongly sets up somebody else doing it, or trying to, or them losing a bit of their territory, or their flag waving, defending various territories, meaning a lot less than it did just the other day. I think that there's quite a lot of food for thought here. And in regards to Stussy, guys, I know that we talked about her recently in the last video that I made. I just want to point out that she looks suspect as fuck in this chapter. Like, she got those greedy eyes. Moving on into the territory of speculation, I just really want to talk about this, and I don't really believe it, but it's just really interesting. Basically, at the end of the Luffy versus Katakuri fight, what Katakuri said to Luffy can be interpreted as, I look forward to the day in which you defeat Big Mom. I 100% fully expect, based on our fight and getting to know you, that one day you will. And I'm fine with that. It can be interpreted as perhaps Katakuri wants Big Mom to be defeated. And guys, from the perspective of family, this could be true and this could be powerful. Assuming it's right, which I don't believe in, but I think that it's interesting anyway. Like, I would like to compare this to sort of families in which maybe your dad works a lot and you hardly ever see him. And sometimes you just kind of wish that we could just be a family. Maybe have game night. Maybe you didn't have to work overtime all the time. Kind of just want to sit down on the couch and watch the game with you. And then looking at it from the perspective of Katakuri and Big Mom, I think something like ready for you just to be my mother and not my pirate captain. I really do believe that probably a case of looking far too deep into it, but I really just wanted to share that. And lastly, guys, I just want to remind you, I don't really want to speculate, I just want to remind you that the Vinsmoke will 100% do something before the end of this arc. And what they do right now is a legit question. And simultaneous to this, I am 100% sure something interesting will happen when Big Mom eats the cake. Like, this is one of those things that's really hard to describe. But Oda has weaved into this narrative of Capone feeding Big Mom the cake the idea that Capone intends to assassinate her, and he also needs to find a way to get Capone out of there. I don't think that we should lose hope that something interesting will happen. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to share my thoughts on this chapter. Again, I don't want to say that this chapter is a bad chapter because I enjoyed it. I thought the pudding stuff was amazing, and I thought the Luffy and Katakuri stuff was enjoyable. But there was a lot of pressure on this moment in the story as Oda was, for the most part, leading up to this for 20 chapters. And it didn't quite get there for me, for how I think that it should have made me feel. But as always, I am curious as to what you have to say about this, whether you agree or disagree, and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.